The emergency alarm screamed through the Galactic Council monitoring station like a wounded animal. Communications Officer Velrus jumped in his seat, his four eyes widening as every screen in front of him turned blood red. For 17 cycles he had worked this shift without hearing that sound. Now it pierced through the quiet hum of the station, making his heart race. The message came through scrambled, desperate, breaking apart with interference. Velrus worked frantically to clear it up, his fingers dancing across holographic controls. When the voice finally came through clearly, it carried pure terror. "This is the Quillrath Republic Colony Fleet. We are under attack. Repeat, we are under attack. 40,000 civilians on board. The Draken Marauders have disabled our engines. We have no weapons, no shields. They are boarding our ships. Please, anyone who can hear this, we need immediate assistance. Our position is Sector 794, near the Forbidden Zone boundary. We have children on these ships. Please, we are begging." The transmission cut to static. Velrus felt his blood turn cold. The Draken Marauders were notorious across the galaxy. They took no prisoners. They showed no mercy. 40,000 Quillrath civilians would be dead within hours. Their ships stripped for parts, their colony dreams ending in screams and vacuum. He immediately forwarded the distress call to the Galactic Council chambers on Centaurus Prime. Then he did something he had never done before. He broadcast the SOS on every available frequency, shooting it out into space like a desperate prayer. If the Council fleet could not reach them in time, maybe someone else could. On Centaurus Prime, the Galactic Council chamber erupted into chaos. Ambassador Therak, representing the Quillrath people, stood with his pale blue skin turning almost white with fear. His voice cracked as he spoke. "Honored Council members, those are my people dying out there. We must send our fleet immediately." High Chancellor Morven, ancient and wise, looked down from his elevated seat with sad eyes. His long fingers drummed slowly on the armrest. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of terrible news. "Our nearest battle fleet is stationed at the Outer Rim. Even at maximum speed, they are 6 cycles away from that location." The chamber fell silent. Everyone understood what that meant. In 6 cycles, there would be nothing left to save except floating debris and frozen bodies. Counselor Dren leaned forward, his scales catching the light. "Is there truly no one closer? No patrol ships? No research vessels with weapons?" Morven shook his head slowly. "The Forbidden Zone was designated restricted space precisely because we maintain no presence there. The dangers outweighed the benefits. Now that decision may cost 40,000 lives." Ambassador Therak collapsed back into his seat, his head in his hands. Around him, other council members murmured their sympathies, but words meant nothing. His people were going to die, and there was nothing anyone could do. Meanwhile, at the monitoring station, something strange appeared on Velrus's sensors. He leaned closer, not believing what he saw. An unidentified fleet had changed course. They were heading directly toward the Quillrath distress signal. The ships appeared on his screen as unknown configurations, not matching any vessel in the galactic database. "By the 7 suns," Velrus whispered. "Someone is responding." 300,000 kilometers away, Fleet Commander Brennan stood on the bridge of the UHNS Valiant, reading the distress call for the 3rd time. Around him, his command crew waited in tense silence. They were an exploration fleet, not a military armada. 6 ships sent from Earth to map this region of space, make peaceful contact, gather scientific data. They had weapons, certainly, but fighting a battle against Draken Marauders was not in their mission parameters. Lieutenant Rodriguez broke the silence. "Commander, that distress call is not in our designated patrol zone. Protocol suggests we forward it to appropriate authorities and continue our survey mission." Brennan did not look up from the screen. "How long until we reach their position if we change course now?" The navigation officer, Marcus Webb, ran quick calculations. 2 hours and 15 minutes at maximum speed, sir. "And the Draken?" "Already there, sir. They are in the process of breaching the colony ships." Brennan finally looked up, his eyes scanning the faces of his crew. These were good people. Scientists, explorers, diplomats. They had families back on Earth. They had not signed up for combat against unknown alien raiders. But he also knew that every single person on this bridge understood what 40,000 civilians being slaughtered meant. "Change course," Brennan said quietly. "All ships maximum speed to the distress signal coordinates. Battle stations." There was a moment of hesitation. Then Rodriguez smiled grimly and began entering commands. "Aye, Commander. All hands, battle stations. This is not a drill. The 6 human ships turned as one, their powerful engines flaring bright against the darkness of space. They accelerated hard, pushing toward a battle they had no obligation to fight for people they had never met. On the Quillrath flagship, Captain Silvex watched her sensor displays with growing despair. The Draken ship surrounded them like predators circling wounded prey. Their weapons had torn through the colony fleet's basic shields in minutes. Now Draken boarding craft attached to hull after hull like parasites. "How long until they breach our main ship?" she asked her security officer. 12 minutes, Captain. Our doors will not hold them long." Silvex looked around her bridge. Her crew members stared back with wide, frightened eyes. They were traders and colonists, not warriors. Below decks, families huddled together in cargo bays, parents holding children, everyone praying to whatever gods they believed in. "Navigator Prin, any response to our distress call?" The young navigator shook his head, tears streaming down his face. "Nothing, Captain. We are alone." Silvex closed her eyes. She had failed her people. She had led them into this death trap. The Forbidden Zone had seemed like a shortcut to their colony destination. Now it was their grave, Captain, Prin suddenly shouted. New contacts on sensors. Multiple ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel. Distance 200,000 kilometers and closing fast. Hope flared in Silvex's chest, then died just as quickly. "Are they Galactic Council vessels?" "No, Captain. The configuration is... I have never seen anything like this. They are not in our database. The ships are angular, heavily armored, covered in what appears to be reactive plating. Energy signatures are extremely high. Captain, these readings do not make sense. No ship should generate that much power." Silvex felt her hope turn to ash. More raiders, or perhaps worse. Some unknown threat emerging from the Forbidden Zone. Her people had escaped one predator only to attract another. On the bridge of the Valiant, Brennan watched the tactical display. The Draken fleet consisted of 30 warships, each bristling with weapons and surrounded by smaller boarding craft. The Quillrath colony ships were large but defenseless, their engines dark, their hulls breached in multiple locations. 6 against 30, Rodriguez muttered. "I have fought worse odds. You have?" Webb asked, surprised. Rodriguez grinned without humor. "No, but it sounded good." Brennan opened a general communication channel broadcasting to all ships in the area. His voice was calm, steady, carrying the authority of someone who had made his decision and would not be moved. "Draken vessels, this is Commander Brennan of the United Human Naval Ship Valiant. You are attacking unarmed civilians. Break off your assault immediately and withdraw, or we will be forced to engage you." The response came quickly, filled with cruel laughter. The voice was harsh, grinding like metal scraping against stone. "Unknown vessels, this is Warlord Crag of the Draken Marauder Fleet. You are interfering in Draken business. Your tiny fleet is outmatched 5-1. Turn away now or be destroyed alongside these pathetic merchants." Brennan glanced at Rodriguez, who was already targeting enemy vessels. He looked at Webb, who had plotted attack vectors. He looked at every member of his bridge crew and saw the same determination reflected in their eyes. "Warlord Crag," Brennan replied, his voice colder now. "Where we come from, we have a saying. Never tell a human the odds. All ships weapons free. Show them why." The human fleet accelerated directly toward the Draken Armada. No evasive maneuvers. No defensive formations. Just 6 ships charging straight at 30, and Warlord Crag laughed at their foolishness. Then the first railgun volley hit his lead cruiser, and the laughter died in his throat. The kinetic round punched through shields that should have stopped it, through armor that should have deflected it, and exploded out the other side in a shower of debris. Alarm screamed across every Draken vessel as they suddenly realized they were not fighting prey. They were fighting predators from a world they had never imagined could exist. The first Draken cruiser exploded in a ball of fire and debris, its reactor breached by a single shot. Warlord Crag stared at his tactical display in disbelief. His shields had been rated to withstand any known weapon in the galaxy. The human projectile had gone through them like they were not even there. "What kind of weapon was that?" he roared at his tactical officer. "Unknown, Warlord. The projectile appears to be solid matter accelerated to extreme velocity. There was no energy signature before impact. Our sensors could not track it properly." Crag's eyes narrowed. Kinetic weapons were primitive technology, abandoned by civilized species thousands of cycles ago. They were inefficient, difficult to aim, easily defended against. Except these humans had somehow perfected them into something terrifying. All ships, evasive patterns. Do not let them get a clear shot. Swarm formation, overwhelm them with numbers. The Draken fleet scattered and reformed, moving to surround the 6 human vessels. 30 ships against 6. The outcome should have been certain. On the Quillwrath flagship, Captain Silvex watched the battle unfold on her sensors with growing amazement. The human ships moved unlike anything she had ever seen. They spun, twisted, changed direction with brutal suddenness. Her tactical computer calculated the G-forces involved in those maneuvers and returned error messages. The numbers were impossible. No living crew could survive such acceleration. They must be drone ships, Navigator Prin said. No biological crew could withstand those forces. But then Silvex saw something that made her question everything. A communication channel opened briefly between 2 human vessels. She caught a glimpse of the bridge, saw figures in uniforms moving with purpose, saw a commander giving orders. They were alive. They were surviving forces that should have turned them into liquid. "What are these creatures?" she whispered. Science Officer Talmus worked frantically at his station, analyzing every scrap of data their sensors collected from the human ships. His findings made no sense. The vessels had minimal inertial dampening systems, far below galactic standard. The artificial gravity appeared weak. The life support systems were crude compared to Quillwrath technology. "Captain, I believe I understand. These beings evolved in a high-gravity environment. Their bodies are naturally resistant to acceleration forces that would kill us. They have built their ships to match their capabilities rather than compensate for their weaknesses." Silvex tried to imagine what kind of world would produce such creatures. How heavy must the gravity be? How harsh the conditions? What evolutionary pressures would create a species that could survive combat maneuvers that violated every principle of safe space travel? The battle intensified. The human ships did not fight like galactic vessels. There were no cautious exchanges of fire at safe distances, no calculated retreats to recharge shields. The humans dove straight into the Draken formation, weapons blazing from every angle. Lieutenant Rodriguez worked his gunnery controls with the precision of a surgeon and the fury of a berserker. Railgun rounds tore through Draken shields and armor. Missile salvos tracked targets with relentless determination, adjusting course dozens of times per second to follow evasive maneuvers. Point defense lasers swatted incoming fire from the sky like annoying insects. "Target the engines," Brennan ordered. "I want them crippled, not destroyed. Disabled ships cannot run away and warn others." The strategy was brutal and effective. Draken vessels found their propulsion systems shredded by precisely aimed fire. They drifted helplessly, unable to maneuver, unable to escape. Their weapons still functioned, but without mobility, they became sitting targets. Warlord Cragg realized with growing horror that he was losing. His 30 ships were being systematically dismantled by 6 vessels that should not exist. His warriors, legendary across the galaxy for their cruelty and combat prowess, were being beaten by unknown aliens using ancient weapons technology perfected to a terrifying degree. All ships concentrate fire on the lead human vessel. Overwhelming force now. 20 Draken warships turned their weapons on the Valiant. Energy beams and plasma torpedoes converged from every direction. The human ship's shields flared bright, absorbing the first wave. Then the second. The third wave broke through, tearing into the hull. Brennan held onto his command chair as the bridge shook. Sparks flew from damaged consoles. The lights flickered. Damage reports flooded in from every deck. "Shields at 30%, Rodriguez reported. "Hull breaches on deck 7 through 9. Fire suppression systems engaging." "Maintain course," Brennan ordered calmly. "Return fire, full spread, all batteries." The Valiant lived up to its name. Despite taking damage that would have destroyed most galactic vessels, it continued fighting. Its weapons blazed without pause, each shot precisely calculated for maximum effect. But the battle was taking its toll. One of the human destroyers, the UHNS Defiant, suffered a reactor hit. Its commander, Captain Lisa Park, made a split-second decision. "All hands abandon ship. Engineering set reactor for overload, 30-second timer, I am taking her in. Her crew protested, but Park's voice cut through every objection. That is an order. Escape pods away now. I will see you all on the other side. The Defiant's crew evacuated in a desperate rush. Escape pods shot away from the dying ship in all directions. Park sat alone on her bridge, hands steady on the controls, steering her vessel directly toward the largest Draken battleship. Warlord. Crag saw the damaged human ship approaching and laughed. The fools think to ram us, shoot it down. But the Defiant was already too close, moving too fast. It slammed into the Draken battleship's side at full speed just as its reactor went critical. The explosion was visible across half the system, a miniature sun blooming in the darkness. When the light faded, the Draken battleship was gone. So was the Defiant. But 8 escape pods drifted safely away, picked up by other human vessels. Captain Silvex watched with tears streaming down her face. She sacrificed herself, her whole ship, for us, for strangers. Navigator Prin's voice shook. What manner of beings are these humans? The battle raged for another hour. The Draken fleet, once 30 strong, was reduced to 15 functional ships. But the humans had paid a price too. 2 vessels destroyed, 3 more heavily damaged. Only the Valiant remained at full combat capability. Then something changed. A Draken cruiser, its weapons still functional but its engines crippled, suddenly exploded from within. Silvex's sensors detected small craft had breached its hull. Minutes later, another Draken ship went dark. All systems offline. What is happening? She asked Talmus. The science officer's voice trembled with an emotion between awe and terror. The humans are boarding them. They are sending their warriors inside enemy vessels. On board the Draken cruiser Savage Claw, Warlord Crag, second-in-command, fought for his life. The human boarding party had cut through the hull with some kind of thermal lance, then poured inside wearing armored suits that made them look like walking tanks. Draken warriors stood 8 feet tall, their natural claws capable of rending steel. They were feared across the galaxy as brutal hand-to-hand combatants. They rushed the human boarders with roars of fury, expecting easy kills. Sergeant Keller led the Marine assault team with cold efficiency. She had trained for boarding actions on a dozen hostile environments. She had fought in urban combat on Earth, where every corner might hide death. These Draken were fierce, certainly, but they fought with rage instead of discipline. Overlapping fields of fire, she ordered. Do not let them close distance. The Marines formed a tight defensive formation. When the Draken charged, they met a wall of concentrated firepower. Assault rifles designed to stop charging bears and enraged elephants on Earth made short work of alien warriors who had never faced such weapons. The few Draken who reached melee range found that human armor was not for show. Enhanced exoskeletons gave the Marines strength matching their opponents. Combat training that began in childhood gave them technique. Most importantly, humans fought with teamwork. One Marine would block and parry while 2 others struck from angles, coordinated perfectly. In 4 minutes, the Draken crew was subdued. Sergeant Keller stood in the ship's control room, surrounded by defeated enemies, and called back to the Valiant. Commander Brennan, the cruiser is secured. Their crew surrendered. What are your orders? Brennan's response was immediate. Treat them with respect. Medical attention for wounded. They are prisoners of war now, not targets. Let them see what mercy looks like. Across the battle space, other human boarding teams achieved similar results. The Draken had expected monsters. They found warriors who could show both fury and compassion, who fought with overwhelming force but knew when to stop. Warlord Crag, watching his fleet crumble, made a desperate decision. Send the emergency signal. Call for the main armada. Whatever these humans are, they must not be allowed to interfere with our plans. His communication officer hesitated. Warlord, the Supreme Commander will be displeased that we needed reinforcement. Crag's clawed hand smashed into the control panel. Do it. These creatures are unlike anything we have encountered. The Supreme Commander must know. The signal went out across Draken space, a call for help that would bring consequences no one could imagine. The message was simple and terrifying. We have encountered a new species. They call themselves humans. They are powerful beyond measure. Send the Armada. Send everything. Back on Centaurus Prime, the Galactic Council watched live feeds with stunned silence. High Chancellor Morven had lost count of how many times he had muttered prayers to ancient gods. Ambassador Theric wept openly, watching these unknown humans sacrifice themselves for his people. But it was the Council's military advisor, General Havix, who spoke the truth everyone was thinking. We have just witnessed a battle group from an unknown species defeat a Draken Raider fleet 3 times their size. They used weapons we considered obsolete and tactics we would call suicidal. They boarded enemy vessels in hand-to-hand combat. They sacrificed their own ships without hesitation. He paused, his voice dropping to barely a whisper. And according to our sensors, this was not even their military fleet. These were exploration vessels with minimal weaponry. What would their actual warships be capable of? The chamber remained silent. No one had an answer. No one wanted to imagine. On the Valiant, Brennan received a communication from the Quillwrath flagship. Captain Silvex's face appeared on screen, her expression mixing gratitude and fear. Commander Brennan, we cannot express our thanks. You saved 40,000 lives today. We owe you a debt that can never be repaid. Brennan smiled tiredly. His uniform was torn, his face smudged with smoke. Captain Silvex, we did what anyone should do when hearing a cry for help. Now let us get your ships repaired and your people to safety. We can exchange formal gratitude later. Silvex nodded, then asked the question burning in her mind. Commander, what kind of world produces warriors like you? Brennan's smile faded. He looked tired, suddenly much older. Captain, we come from a planet called Earth. It is a beautiful world. It is also a world that has tried to kill humanity since we first stood upright. We learned to fight because we had no choice. Every species on our planet is either predator or prey. We were prey once. We decided to become something else. Before Silvex could respond, alarms blared across both bridges. The Valiant's sensor officer shouted a warning that made Brennan's blood run cold. Commander, massive gravitic disturbances detected. Multiple signatures. Distance 400,000 kilometers and closing. Sir, it is a fleet. A big one. I am reading over 200 contacts. Brennan closed his eyes briefly. They had won the battle. But the war was just beginning. All ships damage status. Can we fight? The responses came back grim. 2 ships destroyed. 3 barely functional. Only the Valiant remained combat ready. And even it had sustained significant damage. 200 Draken warships were coming. And the humans had just used 40% of their ammunition, defeating 30. Brennan opened his eyes and began giving orders. There was no option to run. The Quillwrath civilians could not move fast enough. Someone had to buy them time, and humanity had never been good at backing down from impossible odds. Commander Brennan stood on the damaged bridge of the Valiant, staring at the tactical display that showed his death approaching. 200 Draken warships moving in perfect formation, their weapons hot and ready. His small fleet was battered, low on ammunition, running on emergency power in some sections. Every logical calculation said they should retreat immediately. Logic had never been humanity's strongest trait. Open a channel to Captain Silvex, Brennan ordered. The Quillwrath captain's face appeared on screen, her pale blue skin even paler than before. She had seen the same sensor readings. She knew what was coming. Commander Brennan, you must retreat. Your ships have already done more than anyone could ask. Take your people and go. We will try to buy you time. Brennan shook his head slowly. With respect, Captain, your colony ships cannot outrun that fleet. Your weapons cannot hold them off. If we leave, you all die. If you stay, you die with us, Silvex said softly. That is not honor. That is waste. Maybe, Brennan admitted. But where I come from, we have a saying. No one gets left behind. That means you, Captain. All 40,000 of you. He paused, then smiled grimly. Besides, we still have a few tricks left. He closed the channel before she could argue and turned to his crew. All right, people. We are outnumbered 40-1. We are low on ammunition and running on borrowed time. Anyone have any brilliant ideas? Lieutenant Rodriguez spoke up first. Commander, we cannot win a straight fight. But we do not need to win. We just need to survive long enough for help to arrive. The Galactic Council fleet is still 5 cycles away, Webb pointed out. We need to hold for over 100 hours against those odds. Then we do not fight a straight fight, said Engineer Bishop, her voice crackling over the comm from the damaged engineering deck. Sir, there is an asteroid field 12,000 kilometers from our current position. Dense rock, lots of cover, sensor interference from metallic deposits. Brennan felt a cold smile spreading across his face. We are going to turn this into a guerrilla war. Sir? Rodriguez looked confused. The Draken expect a space battle, ship against ship, fleet against fleet, civilized combat at civilized distances. That is how the Galactic Council fights. Brennan's eyes gleamed with dangerous inspiration. But we are not from the Galactic Council. We are from Earth. And on Earth, when you are outnumbered and outgunned, you change the rules. He opened channels to all remaining human vessels. All ships, this is Brennan. We are moving to asteroid field designated Alpha 7. Prepare for unconventional warfare. Engineering teams, I need every nuclear mine we have planted in those asteroids within 2 hours. Weapons teams, mount railgun platforms on any stable rock surface big enough. Hide them. Camouflage them. Make them invisible until we need them. Captain Park's voice came through, patched in from her rescue pod. Commander, I am still combat capable. Put me on one of those railgun platforms. Denied, Captain. You just survived a reactor explosion. You need medical attention. With respect, sir, I will get medical attention after we win. Put me on a gun. Brennan hesitated, then nodded. That was the human spirit right there. Battered but unbroken. Asking not for rest but for another weapon. Rodriguez, coordinate with Captain Park. Get her armed and dangerous. The human fleet moved with desperate speed toward the asteroid field. Behind them, the Quillrath colony ships turned and ran at their maximum velocity, heading toward the nearest Galactic Council outpost. It would take them days to reach safety. The humans would buy them those days or die trying. On board the Draken flagship Eternal Fury, Supreme Commander Thrax reviewed the battle reports from Warlord Kragg's encounter with growing interest. These humans intrigued him. They fought with primitive weapons but advanced tactics. They sacrificed themselves but also showed mercy. They were clearly dangerous, but perhaps they could be useful. Tactical Officer Venn, what is the status of the human fleet? They are retreating into asteroid field Alpha 7, Commander. It appears they are taking defensive positions. Thrax laughed, a sound like grinding rocks. Cowards hiding in rocks. Very well, we will dig them out. Order the fleet to pursue. Surround the field. Flush them into open space where we can destroy them properly. Venn, who was older and more cautious than his commander, cleared his throat nervously. Supreme Commander, the asteroid field poses dangers. Sensor interference, collision hazards, limited maneuverability. Are you afraid of some floating rocks, Venn? I am afraid of an enemy who chooses a battlefield carefully, sir. Thrax waved a dismissive hand. These humans are desperate and cornered. They fled to the one place they thought might offer protection. We have 200 ships. They have 6, half of them crippled. Even in an asteroid field, the outcome is certain. The Draken Armada entered the field in a massive wave, confident in their overwhelming numbers. Their sensors swept through the asteroids, looking for the hiding human vessels. They found the Valiant almost immediately, its signature clear on their displays, apparently trying to hide behind a large asteroid cluster. There, Thrax pointed. The cowards reveal themselves. All forward units engage and destroy. 50 Draken warships broke formation and accelerated toward the Valiant's position. They moved carefully through the asteroids, weapons charged, ready to obliterate the human flagship. On the Valiant's bridge, Brennan watched the Draken ships approaching on sensors. He counted them silently. 50 vessels moving in tight formation, exactly as predicted, exactly as hoped. Bishop, are the mines ready? All set, Commander. Waiting on your signal. Captain Park, gun platforms ready? Park's voice came through steady and cold. All 12 platforms online and targeted. Just say the word. Brennan waited. The Draken ships moved deeper into the field, passing the carefully marked positions where nuclear mines sat hidden inside hollowed asteroids. Passing the rock surfaces where railgun platforms were camouflaged to look like natural formations. Wait for it, Brennan whispered. Wait. The lead Draken ship passed the final marker position. Brennan's hand came down on the command panel. Now, light them up. The asteroid field transformed from a hiding place into a death trap in seconds. Nuclear mines detonated inside asteroids, turning the rocks themselves into massive fragmentation bombs. Each explosion sent tons of stone and metal flying in every direction at deadly velocities. The Draken shields, designed to stop energy weapons, were useless against solid matter moving at such speeds. Hull plating crumpled, viewports shattered, ships were battered from multiple directions simultaneously. Then the railgun platforms opened fire. From 12 hidden positions, Captain Park and her fellow gunners unleashed hell. At point-blank range, the kinetic rounds punched through already damaged Draken hulls with devastating effect. Reactors breached. Ammunition stores detonated. Ships broke apart, and finally the human fleet struck. The Valiant and its remaining sister ships had not been hiding. They had been waiting. Now they emerged from behind asteroids where they had powered down completely, appearing like ghosts on Draken sensors. At ranges measured in hundreds of meters rather than thousands of kilometers, the human ships fired everything they had. Missiles screamed through the chaos. Railguns spoke their thunderous language. Energy weapons carved through damaged shields. In 90 seconds, 50 Draken warships were reduced to 23. And those 23 were scattered, disoriented, separated from their main fleet. On the Eternal Fury, Supreme Commander Thrax stared at his tactical display in disbelief. Half his forward elements gone in less than 2 minutes. The asteroid field was not cover. It was a weapon. The humans had turned the entire environment into a trap. Pull back the forward units, he ordered. Regroup the fleet. We will bombard the entire field from range, turn every asteroid to dust. But Tactical Officer Venn was already shaking his head. Sir, the remaining forward ships are being pursued. The humans are not letting them escape. Indeed, the human vessels had broken formation and were hunting through the asteroids like wolves chasing prey. Each Draken ship that tried to retreat found itself cut off, flanked, overwhelmed by superior tactics and brutal efficiency. Sergeant Keller led another boarding action, this time against a Draken destroyer that had taken engine damage. Her Marines cut through the hull and secured the ship in 8 minutes. The Draken crew, still shocked from the initial ambush, surrendered without significant resistance. This is insane, one captured Draken warrior said through a translator. You are outnumbered. You are outgunned. Why do you not run? Keller looked at him through her helmet visor. Because running is not what we do, not when innocent people need protecting. You will all die here. Maybe. But we will take a lot of you with us first, and the people we are protecting will escape. That is what matters. The Draken warrior looked into her eyes and saw something that made him shudder. These humans truly believed what they said. They would fight to the last breath, extract the highest possible price, and call it victory even in death. For 6 hours, the battle raged through the asteroid field. The Draken had numbers. The humans had terrain, tactics, and a willingness to use every dirty trick in the book. They set ambushes. They feigned retreats, then turned and struck. They used asteroids as shields and weapons simultaneously. The destroyer UHNS Guardian took critical damage when a Draken battleship caught it in open space. Its reactor was failing, containment dropping rapidly. The commander, Captain James Morrison, evacuated most of his crew but stayed behind with a skeleton team. Brennan, this is Morrison. We are done. Reactors going critical in 5 minutes. I am seeing a cluster of Draken ships on my sensors about 3,000 kilometers from your position. Brennan understood immediately what Morrison was suggesting. James, you do not have to. Yes, I do. 40,000 civilians, remember? That is why we are here. That is why it matters. Morrison paused. It has been an honor serving with you, Commander. Take care of my crew. I will. I promise. Then I will see you on the other side. Guardian out. The UHNS Guardian turned toward the Draken ship cluster and accelerated to ramming speed. The Draken commander saw it coming and tried to scatter, but in the confined space of the asteroid field there was nowhere to go. The Guardian plowed into the center of their formation and its reactor let go. The explosion was apocalyptic. 12 Draken ships were vaporized instantly. 8 more were damaged beyond repair. The shockwave sent asteroids tumbling through space, creating a chain reaction of collisions that claimed 3 more enemy vessels. 23 Draken ships gone in a single moment, because one human captain decided that protecting strangers was worth dying for. On the Eternal Fury, Supreme Commander Thrax finally accepted reality. These humans were not prey. They were not even normal predators. They were something the galaxy had never encountered. An entire species that had evolved on a world so harsh, so brutal, that dying for others came naturally to them. Pull back the fleet, he ordered quietly. Establish a perimeter around the asteroid field, but do not enter. We will wait them out. They must run out of supplies eventually. Venn nodded slowly. A wise decision, sir, is it? Thrax stared at the tactical display showing the wreckage of over 70 ships. These humans came from nowhere. They fight like demons. They turn every disadvantage into a weapon. Then what kind of world creates such beings? I do not know, sir. But I pray we never have to visit it. Inside the asteroid field, Commander Brennan took stock of his situation. 2 ships destroyed. The remaining 4 all damaged to varying degrees. Ammunition down to 30%. Medical bays overflowing with wounded. They had inflicted massive casualties on the enemy, but the Draken still had over 100 functional warships surrounding the field. He opened a channel to the Quillrath colony fleet. Captain Silvex, what is your status? Silvex's face appeared, tears streaming down her cheeks. We are clear of the immediate danger zone, Commander. We monitored the battle. Your people, those captains who sacrificed themselves, we will remember them forever. We will sing songs of their courage to our children and our children's children. They bought you time. Use it. Get to safety. What about you? Brennan smiled tiredly. We will hold as long as we can. The Galactic Council fleet should arrive in 96 hours. We just need to survive until then. 96 hours against those odds. We have faced worse. That was a lie, but it sounded good. After the channel closed, Rodriguez leaned close. Sir, have we faced worse? No, Brennan admitted. But they do not need to know that. In the council chambers on Centaurus Prime, High Chancellor Morven stood before the assembled representatives and made an announcement that would change galactic history. Honored members, we have witnessed something extraordinary. A species we did not know existed has sacrificed itself to protect Quillrath civilians. They face impossible odds with courage we can barely comprehend. I propose we offer them more than gratitude. I propose we offer them alliance. Ambassador Theric stood immediately. Seconded. These humans have earned our friendship with blood and sacrifice. But Councillor Dren raised an objection. High Chancellor, we know nothing about these humans, only that they are extremely dangerous. We may be inviting predators into our midst. Then we will learn about them, Morven replied. Better to know dangerous friends than to make dangerous enemies. All in favor? The vote was not unanimous, but it was overwhelming. Humanity had announced itself to the galaxy in fire and fury. Now they would learn if the galaxy could accept them. In the asteroid field, Brennan prepared for another long watch. 96 hours to hold, 96 hours to survive. Against over 100 warships with limited ammunition and damaged vessels, just another day for the crew of the UHNS Valiant, just another impossible situation that humans would somehow find a way through, because that was what Deathworlders did. The Galactic Council Relief Fleet arrived 92 hours later to find the asteroid field transformed into a graveyard. The sensors showed debris from over 90 Draken warships floating among the shattered rocks. The remaining Draken vessels were in full retreat, fleeing as fast as their engines could carry them. And in the center of the chaos, 4 battered human ships still held position, their weapons tracking any enemy that came too close. Admiral Corthus commanded the Council fleet from his flagship, the massive dreadnought Eternal Vigilance. He was a career military officer with 40 cycles of experience. He had commanded fleets in border disputes and peacekeeping operations. He had seen combat against pirates and raiders, but he had never seen anything like this. Communications, hail the human commander. Let him know we are here to assist. The response came quickly. Commander Brennan's face appeared on the main screen and Corthus had to suppress his shock. The human looked exhausted, his uniform torn and stained, a bandage wrapped around his head. But his eyes were alert and focused. Admiral Corthus, thank you for coming. The Draken fleet has withdrawn, but they are maintaining position at the edge of the system. I believe they are waiting for reinforcements. Corthus nodded. Commander Brennan, your actions here have been extraordinary. The Quillrath civilians are safe thanks to your courage. However, I must insist that you allow my medical teams to assist your wounded and my engineers to help repair your vessels. That would be appreciated, Admiral. But I have to warn you, human biology is significantly different from galactic standard. Your medical teams might want to review our biological data before attempting treatment. Of course, we will proceed carefully. Corthus paused. Commander, the Galactic Council has requested your presence on Centaurus Prime. They wish to discuss a formal alliance and learn more about humanity. Brennan looked off-screen for a moment, apparently consulting with his crew, then nodded. Understood. I will need a few hours to ensure my people are stable. Then I will join you. After the channel closed, Korthus turned to his medical coordinator. Dr. Halvix, prepare your best xenobiology team. I want them ready before we board those human vessels. Dr. Halvix was already reviewing the biological data that Brennan had transmitted. His four eyes widened with each paragraph. Admiral, this is remarkable. Human baseline gravity is 0.98 standard, almost 3 times our own. Their atmospheric oxygen content is 21%, which would be toxic to most of our species. Their bodies contain redundant systems, accelerated healing factors, and extreme resistance to injury. Is it safe for our teams to board? For us? Yes, their ship environments are compatible with galactic standard. But Admiral, I am concerned about the opposite question. These humans evolved on what we classify as a Class 12 death world. Nothing above Class 8 should produce sentient life. The evolutionary pressures on such a planet would create beings adapted for constant survival against extreme threats. Korthus understood what Halvix was saying. These humans were not just brave. They were physically designed for environments that would kill most civilized species. No wonder they fought with such ferocity. When the medical teams finally boarded the UHNS Valiant, they found a scene that would haunt their dreams for cycles to come. The medical bay was filled with wounded humans who should have been unconscious or in stasis. Instead, they were awake, talking, some even joking with each other. A Marine with a broken arm was helping treat another soldier's burns. A pilot with 3 cracked ribs was reviewing damage reports on a data pad. Dr. Halvix approached Commander Brennan, who was having a gash on his forehead sealed by a medical technician. Commander, these injuries? Your people should be incapacitated. How are they still functioning? Brennan glanced around the medical bay and shrugged. These are minor injuries by human standards. Most of these crew members will be back on duty within a day or 2. He saw Halvix's expression and added gently, Doctor, I know this seems strange, but humans evolved on a planet where injury was constant. Our bodies learn to heal fast and function through pain. It is survival adaptation, nothing more. Nothing more, Halvix repeated faintly. Commander, on my world, a broken bone requires weeks of regeneration therapy. Your Marine over there has a broken arm and is using it to help others. It is his left arm, Brennan explained. He is right-handed. He can still work? Halvix decided he needed to sit down. The cultural shock was overwhelming. These beings had pain tolerances beyond comprehension, healing rates that seemed impossible, and a complete inability to recognize when they should stop and rest. 3 days later, Commander Brennan stood before the Galactic Council on Centaurus Prime. He wore his dress uniform, cleaned and pressed, hiding the bandages underneath. Behind him stood Lieutenant Rodriguez and Sergeant Keller, representing the military personnel. With them was Ambassador Foster, who had arrived from Earth specifically for this meeting. High Chancellor Morven opened the proceedings with formal courtesy. Commander Brennan, on behalf of the Galactic Council, I express our deepest gratitude for your actions in protecting the Quillrath civilians. Your courage and sacrifice exemplify the finest qualities of sentient beings. Thank you, High Chancellor, but I must clarify something. We did not do anything special. Any decent person would help others in distress. A murmur ran through the council chamber. Counselor Dren leaned forward. Commander, you sacrificed 2 of your ships and dozens of crew members to protect strangers. That is not normal behavior. Most species would preserve their own people first. Brennan's expression hardened slightly. With respect, Counselor, that says more about your experiences than about basic morality. Where we come from. Leaving people to die when you could help is considered cowardice, not pragmatism. Ambassador Foster touched Brennan's arm gently, then stepped forward. She was a career diplomat, trained to smooth over conflicts and build bridges between cultures. What Commander Brennan means is that humanity places high value on protecting those who cannot protect themselves. This is a core principle of our civilization. Ambassador Foster, High Chancellor Morven said warmly, we would very much like to learn more about humanity. Your people arrived from unknown space, using ships not in our databases, wielding weapons we thought obsolete. You fought with tactics we have never encountered. Please help us understand. Where does humanity come from? Foster nodded and activated a holographic display. An image of Earth appeared, rotating slowly, showing blue oceans and green continents, white clouds swirling in beautiful patterns. This is Earth, our homeworld. It is located approximately 6 months' travel from Galactic Council space, in a region you have not yet explored. The image zoomed in, showing various environments: tropical rainforests teeming with life, vast oceans filled with creatures large and small, mountain ranges that touched the clouds, deserts that stretched beyond horizons. Counselor Dren studied the images with growing unease. Ambassador, what is the gravity on your world? 9.8 meters per second squared, Counselor. A collective gasp ran through the chamber. That was almost 3 times standard galactic gravity. The implications were staggering. And your atmospheric composition? 78% nitrogen, 21% oxygen with trace amounts of other gases. Another gasp. That oxygen level would be dangerously high for most Council species. Foster continued calmly. Earth is classified in our own surveys as a high-energy world. Life evolved to be competitive, aggressive, and resilient. Natural selection is brutal and constant. However, this same environment fostered cooperation. Humans learned early that working together was the key to survival. She changed the image to show Earth's predators: lions, tigers, bears, sharks, crocodiles, venomous snakes, giant eagles. The Council members stared in horror at creatures that could kill an adult galactic citizen with ease. These are some of the predators that humans shared the planet with. We were not the strongest or fastest or most dangerous. We survived through intelligence, tool use, and social cooperation. Admiral Korthus spoke up. Ambassador, our classification system rates Earth as a Class 12 death world. Our scientists insisted this must be an error. Class 12 worlds do not produce sentient life. Foster smiled slightly. Then perhaps your classification system needs adjustment, Admiral. Humans are living proof that harsh environments can create not just survivors, but civilizations capable of compassion and art and science. And warfare, Counselor Dren added pointedly. Your military tactics were sophisticated and brutal. You fought with a precision that suggests extensive combat experience. The chamber fell silent. This was the uncomfortable truth everyone had been avoiding. The humans fought too well. They knew too much about killing. Ambassador Foster did not flinch from the question. Counselor Dren, humanity has a violent history. We will not deny this. For thousands of years, human tribes and nations fought each other for resources, territory, ideology. We perfected the art of warfare through terrible necessity. Our history is filled with conflicts that killed millions. She let that sink in before continuing. But that same history taught us the cost of violence. We learned slowly and painfully that cooperation achieves more than conquest. The Earth you see united today was not always so. We had to grow beyond our violent past. We are still growing. You say you are beyond violence, Dren challenged. Yet you entered a battle without hesitation. You killed Draken warriors efficiently and without mercy. Brennan stepped forward again. We killed them because they were killing innocent civilians, Counselor. There is a difference between violence for conquest and violence for protection. We will always fight to defend those who cannot defend themselves. But we will never be the aggressors. How can we trust that? Dren demanded. You possess weapons that exceed our technology. You have military experience that surpasses our own. What prevents you from becoming conquerors yourselves? Ambassador Foster met his gaze steadily. The same thing that prevented us from leaving the Quillrath to die, Counselor. Moral principles. We could have fled that battle. We could have preserved our own people and left strangers to their fate. We chose differently. Judge us by our actions, not your fears. High Chancellor Morven raised his hand for silence. These are difficult questions without easy answers. However, I believe we must make a decision. Humanity has demonstrated both capability and compassion. They risked everything to protect Council civilians. I propose we offer them provisional membership in the Galactic Council and formal alliance. I object, Dren said immediately. We are inviting dangerous predators into our civilization. We are inviting powerful allies, Ambassador Theric countered. The Quillrath representative stood, his voice strong. My people owe their lives to these humans. 40,000 civilians are alive today because humans chose to fight when they had every reason to flee. That speaks to character, not danger. The debate raged for hours. Some council members feared humanity's military power. Others saw opportunity for alliance with a strong species. Still others argued that humanity's violent history made them unsuitable for civilized society. Finally, High Chancellor Morven called for a vote. All those in favor of provisional council membership and alliance with humanity? The vote was close but decisive. Humanity would join the Galactic Council with provisional status. subject to review after one standard cycle. As the council chamber cleared, Admiral Korthus approached Commander Brennan. "Commander, may I speak with you privately?" They moved to a side chamber and Korthus closed the door. His expression was grave. "Commander, there is something the council has not yet discussed publicly. The Draken attack on the Quillwrath was not random raiding. He activated a holographic display showing intercepted communications. Our intelligence service recovered these transmissions from destroyed Draken vessels. The attack was a military test. The Draken sovereignty is preparing for a full-scale invasion of council space." Brennan studied the data with growing concern. "How large is their military?" "Over 2,000 warships, according to our estimates. They have been building their fleet for decades, preparing for conquest. The attack on the Quillwrath was designed to test our response times and capabilities. And now they know those capabilities are limited." "Exactly. The Council fleet is designed for peacekeeping and border patrol, not total warfare. We have perhaps 400 military vessels scattered across dozens of systems. Against 2,000 Draken warships, we would be overwhelmed." Brennan was silent for a moment. "Admiral, what are you asking me?" "I am asking if humanity would be willing to help us. Not just with ships, but with knowledge. You understand warfare in ways we never wanted to learn. You have tactics and strategies that could make the difference between survival and extinction. You want us to teach you how to fight. I want you to help us survive." Korthus looked tired suddenly, old beyond his cycles. "I have commanded fleets for 40 years, Commander. I have studied military history and strategy. But it is all theoretical. The Council has not fought a real war in over 2 centuries. We have forgotten what total warfare means. You have not." Brennan thought about Earth's bloody history, the world wars, the countless conflicts, the millions who died, learning the lessons that humanity now possessed. That knowledge was purchased with blood and suffering. But it could also save lives. "I will need to consult with Earth, Admiral. This is beyond my authority to decide. But I think I can promise you this much. If the Draken invade, humanity will stand with the Council." "We do not abandon friends?" Korthus nodded gratefully. "That is all I can ask." As Brennan left the chamber, he found Sergeant Keller waiting in the corridor. She fell into step beside him. "How bad is it, sir?" 2,000 enemy warships against a Council fleet designed for peacekeeping. It is going to be a slaughter. Unless we help. "Unless we help," Brennan agreed. "Keller, are we doing the right thing? We came out here to explore, make peaceful contact. Now we are about to get involved in an interstellar war." Keller was quiet for a moment. "Sir, do you remember why you ordered us to respond to that distress call? You said when someone is drowning, you do not check if they speak your language first. Well, the Galactic Council is drowning. They just do not know it yet. We can help them. So we will." Brennan smiled slightly. "When did you become a philosopher?" "I had a good teacher, sir." Across the galaxy in the dark heart of Draken space, Supreme Commander Thrax stood before the assembled warlords of the sovereignty. He had returned from the battle at the asteroid field with his fleet shattered and his pride wounded. Now he would face judgment. But instead of punishment, the warlords listened to his report with intense interest. The humans had defeated superior numbers through superior tactics. They had turned the battlefield itself into a weapon. They had fought with a ferocity that the Draken, for all their reputation as brutal warriors, had never encountered. "These humans are dangerous," Thrax concluded. "They should not be underestimated." The eldest warlord, ancient and scarred, leaned forward. "You say they are dangerous. I say they are teachers. Everything you described, every tactic they used, can be learned. Can be copied, can be improved upon. You want us to fight like the humans? I want us to learn from the humans," the elder corrected. "Then use that knowledge to conquer them and the entire Council. If these Deathworlders can turn a disadvantage into victory, imagine what we could do with their tactics and our numbers." Thrax felt a chill run through him. The Draken sovereignty was about to transform from a raiding force into something far more dangerous. They would study humanity's tactics, adapt them, perfect them, and then they would launch an invasion that would use Earth's own military doctrine against the galaxy. The war was coming, and both sides were preparing to fight with weapons humanity had inadvertently provided. The question was, would the lesson be learned fast enough to matter? Or would the Draken use human tactics to destroy the very people who invented them? In the cold calculation of warfare, knowledge was power, and humanity had just shared their knowledge with everyone. 6 weeks after the Council vote, The military training facility on Station Kepler 7 bustled with activity that would have seemed impossible a month earlier. The station, originally designed as a research outpost, had been hastily converted into a joint military academy where Galactic Council forces would learn from human military doctrine. Master Sergeant Ortiz stood in the center of the main training bay, watching the assembled recruits with critical eyes. They were Quillwrath soldiers, tall and slender with their pale blue skin, Centauran warriors heavily built with armored scales, Vexian scouts small and quick with compound eyes, and humans compact and muscular looking almost unremarkable next to their alien counterparts. "Listen up," Ortiz barked, her voice echoing through the bay. "I am Master Sergeant Maria Ortiz, and for the next 12 weeks I will be responsible for keeping you alive when the Draken come. Some of you are warriors, some are soldiers, some have never seen combat. Right now none of that matters. What matters is that you learn to work together." She began walking along the line of recruits. "The Draken are preparing an invasion fleet. Intel suggests they will strike within 6 standard months. That gives us very little time to build a force capable of stopping them. We cannot make you into killers in 12 weeks. We will not try. What we will do is teach you how to think like warriors who have spent their entire evolutionary history fighting for survival." A Quillwrath officer raised his hand. "Sergeant, with respect, we have our own military traditions and training programs. Why must we learn human methods?" Ortiz stopped in front of him. "What is your name, soldier?" "Lieutenant Joran, Sergeant." "Lieutenant Joran, how many wars has the Quillwrath military fought in the last century?" "We have maintained peacekeeping operations in 7 border disputes, Sergeant." "Peacekeeping operations," Ortiz repeated. "Earth has fought 6 major conflicts and dozens of smaller wars in just the last century. We have refined warfare into a science. Your people are traders and builders. Admirable professions. But the Draken are not going to negotiate or build with you. They are going to kill you unless you learn to kill them first." She turned to address the entire group. "We are not here to make you into humans. We are here to teach you what humans learned through thousands of years of brutal experience. Tactics that work, strategies that save lives, and most importantly, the mindset of someone who refuses to give up no matter how bad the odds get." The training began simply enough. Basic conditioning, teamwork exercises, weapons familiarization. But within the first day, problems became obvious. A standard human warm-up run left half the Quillwrath recruits collapsed and gasping. The Centaurans could match human strength but lacked endurance. The Vexians were fast and clever but fragile. Ortiz watched a Quillwrath soldier struggling through push-ups and realized the fundamental problem. You could not train different species as if they were the same. Each had strengths and weaknesses. The key was learning to use those differences as advantages. She called a halt to the exercises and gathered her training staff. "New approach. We are not training one army. We are training integrated units where each species does what they do best." Over the next weeks, the training evolved. Quillwrath soldiers became communication specialists and long-range support, using their natural talent for languages and their superior eyesight. Centaurans formed the heavy assault units, their armored skin and strength making them ideal for close combat. Vexians became scouts and infiltrators, their speed and small size letting them move through spaces larger species could not. And humans became the tactical commanders and special operations forces, teaching their alien counterparts lessons learned through millennia of warfare. In the command center overlooking the training facility, Admiral Corthus watched the exercises with growing hope. Beside him stood Commander Brennan and Professor Amari, a human military historian brought in to lecture on warfare theory. "It is remarkable," Corthus said. 4 weeks ago, these recruits could barely work together. Now they function as cohesive units." Professor Amari nodded. "Species diversity is actually an advantage in military operations. Each species brings unique capabilities. The challenge is coordination. That is where human doctrine excels," Brennan added. "We learned early that the key to winning battles is not individual strength but coordinated teamwork. A human infantry squad is not 6 individuals. It is one organism with 6 parts, each supporting the others." Corthus gestured at the training floor below where a mixed squad was running a simulation exercise. "That squad down there has a Quillwrath commander, a Centauran pointman, 2 human flankers, and a Vexian scout. 2 months ago, they could not even communicate properly. Yesterday, they completed an advanced tactical scenario that my best units would have failed. Because they stopped thinking about species differences and started thinking about tactical advantages, Amari explained. The Quillwrath commander has better situational awareness. The Centauran takes point because he can survive more damage. The humans provide tactical flexibility. The Vexian scout gives them eyes where heavy troops cannot go. Together they are far more effective than any single species unit. Professor Amari, Korthus said carefully, may I ask you something personal? Of course, Admiral. You are a historian, not a military officer. Yet you speak of warfare with such depth of knowledge. How does someone who studies the past become such an expert on combat? Amari's expression grew somber. Admiral, on Earth we say those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. I study human military history because it is a catalog of mistakes written in blood. Every tactic we teach here was learned because someone, somewhere died doing it wrong first. She pulled up a holographic display showing Earth's wars. Ancient battles with swords and spears, medieval sieges, industrial warfare with trenches and machine guns, nuclear weapons that could end civilizations. Humanity's history is violent, Admiral. We are not proud of it, but we learned from it. We learned that wars are won not by the strongest army but by the smartest. We learned that logistics matter more than bravery. We learned that defending is easier than attacking. We learned that high ground is valuable. We learned that supply lines are vulnerable. Every lesson cost lives. She turned to face him directly. You asked why you should learn from humans? Because we have already made all the mistakes. We have already paid the price for knowledge. We are offering you that knowledge freely, so you do not have to pay the same price. Korthus was quiet for a long moment. The Draken are also learning from you, Professor. Our intelligence reports indicate they are studying human tactics. I know, Amari said, which is why we must teach you faster than they can learn. The advantage of human military doctrine is not any single tactic. It is the philosophy behind it. Adaptability, flexibility, the willingness to change strategies based on circumstances. The Draken will learn our tactics, but tactics without understanding are just movements. We are teaching you to think like warriors, not just fight like them. On the training floor, Sergeant Keller was working with a squad that included Joran, the Quillwrath lieutenant who had questioned the training on the first day. They were running an ambush scenario, and Keller watched critically as Joran directed his mixed-species team. Contact right, Joran called out. Centauran forward, establish firing position. Vexian, flank left and locate their second position. Humans suppressing fire. The squad moved with practiced efficiency. The Centauran soldier charged forward, his armored body absorbing simulated fire as he established a defensive position. The Vexian scout disappeared into the terrain, moving too fast to track. The human soldiers laid down covering fire, their weapons precise and controlled. Enemy position located, the Vexian reported. 3 hostiles light cover 40 meters north. Centauran hold position. Humans prepare fragmentation. Vexian on my mark illuminate the target. 3, 2, 1 mark. The Vexian scout lit up the enemy position with a targeting laser. The humans threw simulated grenades with mechanical precision. The exercise computer declared all 3 enemies eliminated. Keller walked over to Joran with a slight smile. Not bad, Lieutenant. You adapted to the situation, used each team member according to their strengths, and completed the objective with 0 friendly casualties. Joran looked surprised. Thank you, Sergeant. But I have a question. In a real battle, would this work? The Draken are experienced warriors. Will these tactics be sufficient? Honestly, no one knows until the shooting starts, Keller admitted. But I can tell you this. 4 weeks ago, your squad would have died in the first 30 seconds of that scenario. Today you won decisively. That is improvement that matters. She gestured for Joran to walk with her away from the squad. Lieutenant, I am going to be straight with you. The Draken outnumber Council forces 5-1. They have better ships, more weapons, and a culture built around conquest. The only advantages you have are unity, knowledge, and determination. The first 2 we can teach. The third comes from inside. You are saying we might lose.
I am saying the odds are bad.
But humans have a saying. It is not the size of the dog in the fight. It is the size of the fight in the dog. The Draken expect you to break and run when they attack. If you stand and fight smart, you can win. Not because you are stronger, but because you refuse to quit. Joran looked at his squad, now resting and reviewing the exercise. Sergeant Keller, may I ask why humanity is helping us? You have no obligation. You could return to your space and remain safe while we fight the Draken. Why risk your lives for strangers? Keller considered the question. Because we have been where you are, Lieutenant. Earth was once full of separate nations that fought each other constantly. We had world wars that killed millions. We developed weapons that could destroy our entire planet. And we learned slowly that survival requires cooperation. When Commander Brennan answered that distress call, he was not just saving Quillrath civilians. He was demonstrating what humanity believes, that we are all connected, that suffering anywhere should matter everywhere, that the strong have an obligation to protect the weak. That is a beautiful philosophy, Sergeant. It is a necessary philosophy, Lieutenant, because if we do not stand together, we will die separately. The Draken are not just your enemy. They are a threat to every peaceful civilization in the galaxy. If we let them conquer Council space, Earth is next. So we fight here now alongside you, not as strangers but as allies. Across the galaxy in the war chambers of the Draken sovereignty, a very different kind of training was taking place. Supreme Commander Thrax reviewed tactical reports from his training exercises with satisfaction. His warriors were learning fast, adapting human tactics to Draken capabilities. Ambush tactics? The Draken had mastered them, using their natural aggression to make ambushes even more devastating. Guerrilla warfare? Their raiders had practiced hit-and-run attacks for generations. Combined arms tactics? They were integrating their fighter craft with capital ships in coordinated strikes. But Thrax also added something humans had not taught: brutality. The human tactics focused on efficiency and precision. Draken tactics would focus on terror and overwhelming force. Why fight smart when you could fight with such ferocity that enemies broke before the battle even began? Tactical Officer Ven, what is the status of the invasion fleet? Nearly complete, Supreme Commander. We will have 2,000 warships ready within 3 months. The logistics train is established. Supply depots are stocked. Our warriors are trained and eager. And the Council? They are building their fleet and training mixed species units. Intelligence suggests they have approximately 600 combat-ready vessels. Our numerical advantage is better than 3 to 1. Thrax smiled coldly. Then we will crush them. These humans taught us tactics, but they also showed us their weakness. They care about civilians. They waste resources protecting the weak. We will use that against them. When we attack, we will strike at civilian targets first. Force them to divide their fleet to protect helpless populations. Then we will destroy them piecemeal. Ven shifted uncomfortably. Supreme Commander, using civilian targets as bait is considered a war crime under galactic conventions. War crimes are things losers get accused of, Ven. Winners write the history. The Council and their human allies want to fight an honorable war? Let them. We will fight to win by any means necessary. That is the real lesson humans taught us. Do whatever it takes to achieve victory. Back on Station Kepler-7, the training continued around the clock. Thousands of soldiers from dozens of species learned to fight together. Tactics were refined. Strategies were practiced. Equipment was tested and improved. Ambassador Foster walked through the facility with High Chancellor Morven, discussing the political situation. The provisional membership is going well. Human merchant ships are beginning trade with Council worlds. Scientific exchanges have begun. Cultural programs are introducing humanity to galactic society. All positive developments, Morven agreed. But there is tension. Some Council members still fear humanity. They see your military power and worry about future intentions. I cannot blame them, Foster said honestly. We are the new kids in the neighborhood and we showed up armed and dangerous. Trust takes time. Time we may not have. Ambassador, our intelligence suggests the Draken invasion will begin within 2 to 3 months. We are racing against the clock. Foster stopped walking and turned to face him. High Chancellor, I need you to understand something about humanity. When we commit to something, we commit completely. We are not helping the Council because of political calculation or strategic advantage. We are helping because it is right. Whatever comes, humanity will stand with you. Even if it costs human lives, especially then. The price of freedom is often paid in blood. We learned that on Earth. We are willing to pay it here. Morven placed his hand on her shoulder in a gesture of respect. Ambassador, I am beginning to understand why the Quillrath call you the Guardians now. You appeared from nowhere to save them. You are training us to save ourselves. You ask for nothing in return except friendship. Not quite nothing, Foster said with a slight smile. We are asking you to stand with us when the fight comes. To not break. To not surrender. To believe that together we can win even when the odds say we cannot. That is what we need from you. The will to fight. You will have it, Morven promised. The Council has authorized full military mobilization. Every world is contributing ships and personnel. We are building the largest fleet in Council history. Then we have a chance. Not a certainty, but a chance. And sometimes that is enough. In the training bay, Master Sergeant Ortiz called the entire assembled force to attention. Thousands of soldiers from across the galaxy stood together, united by a common purpose. Graduation is tomorrow, Ortiz announced. You have completed 12 weeks of intensive training. You have learned tactics, strategy, and teamwork. You have become something new. Not human warriors, not Quillrath soldiers, not Centauran fighters. You are the first truly integrated galactic military force in history. You are proof that different species can work together for a common goal. She paused, looking across the assembled faces, both human and alien. The Draken are coming. They outnumber us. They are experienced and brutal. They will show no mercy, but they will learn something they do not yet understand. That courage is not about being unafraid. Courage is being terrified and fighting anyway. That strength is not about individual power. Strength is standing together when standing alone would be easier. That victory is not about being the biggest or strongest or most numerous. Victory is about refusing to quit even when quitting would be rational. Her voice rose, echoing through the bay. You are ready. Not because you are perfect, but because you are committed. Tomorrow you deploy to your units. Next month you face the enemy. And when that day comes, remember what you learned here. Remember that you are not alone. Remember that billions of people across the Council are depending on you. And remember that humans have a saying that has carried us through our darkest hours. It is not about how hard you can hit. It is about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. That is how winning is done. The soldiers erupted in cheers, a sound that mixed human voices with alien calls, creating a symphony of determination that echoed through the station. Sergeant Keller stood beside Lieutenant Joran, watching the celebration. Think they are ready? Joran asked quietly. As ready as they will ever be, Keller replied. The rest is up to luck and skill. And courage. And courage, Keller agreed. The most important ingredient of all. Across the stars, two forces prepared for inevitable collision. The Galactic Council fleet, smaller but trained in human tactics, waited with nervous determination. The Draken Armada, massive and confident, prepared to sweep across civilized space like a plague. And humanity, the Deathworlders who had never asked to be guardians, stood ready to face the storm alongside their new allies. The war was coming, and the galaxy would learn what happened when peaceful civilizations, guided by warriors from a world that should not produce sentient life, decided to stand and fight. Idic anomaly at the edge of Council space, like a wound being torn in reality itself. Admiral Kortha stood on the bridge of the Eternal Vigilance, watching the sensor data stream in with a sick feeling in his stomach. 2,000 Draken warships, just as intelligence had predicted, dropping out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. The invasion had begun. Communications, send the alert to all Council fleets. Execute Defense Plan Omega. All civilian populations in border systems begin immediate evacuation. Across dozens of star systems, the carefully prepared response activated like a machine. Military vessels moved to defensive positions. Civilian transports began loading refugees. Orbital stations powered up shields. And 600 Council warships, a mix of every species in the Alliance, formed up into the largest military fleet the galaxy had seen in 2 centuries. On the human carrier, UHNS Resolute, Commander Brennan received the alert and immediately began issuing orders. His task force consisted of 12 human vessels and 30 mixed Council ships, designated as Strike Group Talon. Their mission was simple in concept, terrifying in execution. While the main Council fleet engaged the Draken Armada head-on, Strike Group Talon would slip past the battle and strike at Draken supply lines. This is it. People. Brennan addressed his crew over the ship-wide channel. Everything we have trained for comes down to this moment. The Draken expect a conventional battle, fleet against fleet, strength against strength. We are going to show them why humans do not fight conventional wars. Lieutenant Rodriguez looked up from his tactical station. Sir, the Draken fleet is splitting. Main force heading toward the Helix Nebula defensive line. Secondary force, approximately 400 ships moving to flank our position. They learned from our asteroid field trap, Brennan muttered. They are not going to let us control the battlefield this time. Navigator Webb, plot us a course away from the secondary force. Make it look like we are retreating in panic. Sir? Webb looked confused. The Draken think they understand us now. They think we are ambush predators who need terrain advantages. Let them think we are running scared. Meanwhile, we are going exactly where we need to go. The Helix Nebula defensive line became a hellscape of fire and destruction within minutes of contact. The Draken fleet attacked with overwhelming force, their tactics refined from studying human doctrine. They used combined arms, coordinated strikes, aggressive maneuvers, everything they had learned from watching how humanity fought. But Admiral Korthas had learned too. The Council fleet did not meet the Draken charge head-on. Instead, they formed a defensive sphere, overlapping fields of fire supporting each other exactly as human military theory dictated. When Draken ships tried to break through, they met concentrated fire from multiple directions. On the Quillrath battleship Unity's Pride, Captain Silvex commanded a mixed squadron with coal deficiency. All ships target their forward elements. Do not chase. Let them come to us. Conserve ammunition. Support your wing partners. Her tactical officer was Lieutenant Joran, promoted after his excellent performance in training. He coordinated the squadron with precision, calling targets, managing fire patterns, keeping everyone working as one unit. 3 Draken cruisers breaking formation, attempting to flank, Joran reported. Centauran heavy units intercept, Silvex ordered. Quillrath long-range batteries suppressing fire on their approach vector. Human destroyers hold position and prepare to support the Centaurans if needed. The squadron moved like a living organism, each part supporting the others. The Centauran ships, heavily armored and powerful, blocked the Draken flanking attempt. The Quillrath vessels provided covering fire with their superior long-range weapons. The human destroyers waited in reserve, ready to exploit any opening. The Draken cruisers realized too late they had been baited into a trap. Caught between the Centauran wall and Quillrath firepower, they took devastating damage. 2 were destroyed outright, the 3rd crippled and drifting. Target destroyed, Joran reported with satisfaction. Squadron integrity holding at 92%. Ammunition expenditure within acceptable parameters. Silvex allowed herself a small smile. The training had worked. Her mixed-species crew fought with coordination that would have seemed impossible 3 months ago. They were not just defending. They were winning their section of the battle. But across the wider battlefield, the sheer weight of Draken numbers was beginning to tell. 2,000 ships against 600. Even with superior tactics, even with better coordination, the math was brutal. Council ships were being destroyed faster than they could be replaced. Medical bays overflowed with wounded. Damage reports flooded in from every vessel. Admiral Korthas watched the tactical display with growing desperation. We are holding them, but we cannot hold forever. Where is Strike Group Talon? 3-star systems away, Strike Group Talon dropped out of faster-than-light travel in the heart of Draken territory. Brennan had led his fleet on a dangerous high-speed run through poorly mapped space, gambling that the Draken would be too focused on their invasion to properly defend their rear areas. The gamble paid off. Ahead of them lay the industrial moon of Karzath, where the entire Draken war machine was manufactured. Shipyards, ammunition factories, fuel refineries, supply depots, everything the invasion fleet needed was produced here. Engineer Bishop, are your teams ready? Ready and eager, Commander. We have been planning this for weeks. Brennan smiled grimly. Then let us show the Draken what human special operations forces can do. All ships launch assault shuttles. Teams Alpha through Epsilon, you have your targets. Remember, this is not about destroying everything. This is about creating maximum chaos with minimum time. Hit your objectives and get out fast. 30 assault shuttles dropped from the human carriers, each carrying a demolition team specially trained for this mission. They raced toward the moon's surface using stealth systems to avoid detection for as long as possible. When Draken defense systems finally spotted them, the shuttles scattered, forcing the defenders to split their fire. Sergeant Keller led Team Alpha toward the main shipyard complex. Her shuttle took hits from ground-based weapons, alarms screaming, hull plates glowing red from energy impacts. The pilot pushed the craft to its limits, weaving through incoming fire with desperate skill. 30 seconds to landing, the pilot called out. It is going to be rough. We signed up for rough, Keller replied. She turned to her team, a mix of human Marines and Vexian scouts. Remember, we have 2 hours to plant charges and extract. The Vexians scout ahead. Humans provide security and plant the demolitions. Simple, clean, professional. The shuttle crashed more than landed, skidding across the surface in a shower of sparks. The rear hatch blew open and the team poured out into a Draken industrial complex that stretched beyond the horizon. Massive cranes moved starship components. Automated assembly lines produced weapons. Storage tanks held enough fuel to power a fleet for months. Vexian scouts find us the main support structures, Keller ordered. We bring down the primary load-bearing columns, and this entire complex comes down like dominoes. The Vexians disappeared into the maze of machinery, their small size and speed making them nearly impossible to track. Minutes later, their reports came back identifying critical structural points. Keller's Marines moved with practiced efficiency, placing nuclear demolition charges at each point. These were not the crude explosives of Earth's past. These were precisely calibrated devices designed to create cascading structural failures. One charge would weaken a support column. The collapse would overload neighboring supports. Within seconds, an entire section would come down. Draken security forces finally responded, dozens of armed warriors rushing toward the sabotage team. But Keller's Marines were ready. They had trained for this exact scenario, fighting in industrial environments against superior numbers. Defensive positions, make them come through the choke points. The Marines established overlapping fields of fire between massive pieces of machinery. When the Draken charged, they met precision fire from soldiers who had learned to fight in Earth's harshest environments. The Draken were brave and fierce, but they were fighting on ground of humanity's choosing. Charges set, one of the demolition specialists reported. Timer set for 1 hour. All teams, this is Alpha Leader, Keller broadcast. Primary objective complete. Begin extraction. Across the industrial moon, other teams reported similar success. Fuel refineries rigged to explode. Ammunition depots set to detonate in chain reactions. Power generation facilities tagged for destruction. Every critical piece of infrastructure that supported the Draken war machine was marked for death. The extraction was even more chaotic than the insertion. Draken forces, now fully alert, swarmed from every direction. The assault shuttles came in hot, taking heavy fire, some trailing smoke and flame. Not all would make it back. Team Delta's shuttle was hit by a direct strike from a heavy weapon just as it was loading. The craft exploded in a ball of fire, killing everyone on board. Keller watched it happen on her tactical display and felt the familiar pain of losing comrades. But there was no time to mourn. Not yet. All teams, emergency extraction protocols. Shuttles that can fly, pick up anyone you can. We leave no one behind. Her own shuttle was overloaded, carrying Marines from 2 other teams whose transports had been destroyed. They lifted off with Draken fire tearing into the hull, the pilot fighting the controls as systems failed and alarms screamed. "Come on, baby," the pilot muttered. "Just a little further. Just get us to orbit." The shuttle broke atmosphere, trailing fire, its engines barely functioning, hull breached in a dozen places. But it made it to the waiting carrier, crashing into the landing bay in a barely controlled emergency landing. Keller climbed out of the wreckage and counted heads. 3 teams accounted for. Team Delta gone completely. Team Echo down to half strength. But the mission was complete. The charges were planted. In 53 minutes, the Draken war machine would suffer a blow it could not recover from. Commander Brennan stood on the bridge of the Resolute watching the countdown timer. Around him, his strike group formed a defensive perimeter, ready to fight their way out if necessary. But the Draken defenders were disorganized, confused about what had happened. By the time they understood, it would be too late. "Sir, Draken defense fleet approaching. 20 ships, cruiser class or larger," Rodriguez reported. "Time to detonation? 45 minutes. Then we hold here for 45 minutes. All ships defensive formation. Make them come to us." The Draken defense fleet attacked with fury, realizing too late what the human strike force had done. They threw themselves at Strike Group Talon with desperate aggression, trying to break through and somehow stop the demolition charges. But the human and council ships had trained for exactly this scenario. They formed a tight defensive sphere, each ship covering the others, concentrated firepower meeting every Draken attack. It was brutal close-range combat, shields flaring and failing, hull armor taking direct hits, but the defensive formation held. On the countdown timer, the seconds ticked away. 40 minutes, 30, 20. The Draken attacks became more frantic, more desperate. They knew what was coming. At 0, the surface of Karzath transformed into a vision of apocalypse. Nuclear charges detonated in precisely calculated sequence. The main shipyard complex collapsed in on itself, taking months of production with it. Fuel refineries exploded in chain reactions that could be seen from orbit. Ammunition depots detonated with force that registered on seismic sensors across the moon. Power generation facilities went dark, cutting off energy to everything that remained. In less than a minute, the industrial heart of the Draken sovereignty was destroyed. Decades of investment, countless resources, the foundation of their entire military infrastructure, all gone in fire and ruin. Brennan watched the destruction on his screens with no sense of triumph, only grim satisfaction. All ships prepare for faster-than-light jump. Get us out of here before they recover from the shock. Strike Group Talon vanished into the void, leaving behind a Draken defense fleet staring at the smoldering ruins of their civilization's war-making capability. At the Helix Nebula, Supreme Commander Thrax received the reports from Karzath with disbelief, turning to horror. His invasion fleet, 2,000 strong, was now unsupported. No replacement parts for damaged ships, no resupply of ammunition, no fuel for extended operations. The humans had cut his supply lines in a single devastating strike. How long can we sustain combat operations? He demanded of his logistics officer. At current expenditure rates, perhaps 4 more days, Commander. Then we will have to withdraw or we will be stranded in enemy territory without supplies. Thrax stared at the tactical display showing the ongoing battle. His fleet was winning, slowly grinding down the Council defenders through sheer weight of numbers. But it was a Pyrrhic victory. Even if he destroyed the entire Council fleet, his own forces would be crippled and unable to continue the invasion. The humans had turned his own lessons against him. He had learned that warfare was about logistics and supply. They had simply applied that lesson more ruthlessly than he had imagined possible. Pull back the fleet, he ordered bitterly.
Fighting retreat.
Preserve as many ships as possible.
We cannot win this war today. Tactical Officer Ven looked shocked.
Supreme Commander, we have them beaten. Another day and the Council fleet will break. Another day and we will be out of ammunition and fuel, stranded in hostile space while the Council brings in reinforcements. The humans outplayed us, Ven. They let us commit to a battle we could not sustain. We fought their fleet while they destroyed our ability to fight. On the Eternal Vigilance, Admiral Korthas watched in amazement as the Draken fleet began withdrawing. His own fleet was battered, dozens of ships destroyed or crippled, thousands of crew members dead or wounded. But they had held. Against impossible odds, they had held. Sir, the Draken are retreating, his tactical officer reported with disbelief in his voice. Do not pursue, Korthas ordered immediately. Reform our lines, tend to our wounded, recover escape pods. Let them go. We have won enough for today. Captain Sylvex stood on the bridge of Unity's Pride, surrounded by her exhausted crew, and felt tears streaming down her face. They had survived. Against a force 3 times their size, using tactics they had learned only months ago, fighting alongside species they barely knew. They had survived and won. Lieutenant Joran looked at the casualty report scrolling across his screen and felt the weight of victory. They had lost 38 ships from the Council fleet. Over 4,000 beings dead, thousands more wounded. The cost had been terrible, but they had stopped an invasion that would have killed billions. They had shown the Draken that conquest would not be easy. They had proven that different species could stand together. Lieutenant, Sylvex said softly, signal all ships in our squadron. Well done. Stand down from battle stations. Begin recovery operations. 3 days later, the Galactic Council convened an emergency session on Centaurus Prime. The chamber was packed with representatives from every member world, all gathered to discuss the battle and its implications. High Chancellor Morven stood before them with pride and sorrow mixing in his expression. We have achieved what many thought impossible. We stopped a Draken invasion. We defended our worlds. We protected our civilians. But the cost was high. Over 4,000 Council military personnel gave their lives. Dozens of ships were destroyed. Entire families lost loved ones. He paused, letting that sink in. We must honor their sacrifice by ensuring it was not in vain. The Draken will rebuild. They will come again. We must be ready. Ambassador Foster stood to address the Council. High Chancellor, members of the Council, humanity pledged to stand with you, and we kept that pledge. 12 human vessels fought alongside your fleet. 2 were destroyed. 300 human military personnel died defending Council space. We do not regret this sacrifice. We would make it again. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of representatives from dozens of species. But we need to discuss the future. The Draken learned from humanity's military tactics. They adapted, they improved, they became more dangerous. We must learn and adapt faster. We must build a military force capable of permanent defense, not just emergency response. Counselor Dren, who had opposed human membership from the beginning, stood slowly. Ambassador Foster, I voted against your membership. I feared what humanity represented. I thought you were dangerous predators who would threaten Council peace. He paused, his voice thick with emotion. I was wrong. You are dangerous, yes, but you are dangerous to those who threaten the innocent. You proved that actions speak louder than fears. Humanity has earned not just provisional membership, but full standing in this council. I propose we vote immediately to grant Earth permanent membership with all rights and responsibilities. The vote was unanimous. Weeks later, Commander Brennan visited the memorial garden on Centaurus Prime. New monuments had been added, listing the names of all who died defending Council space. Human names alongside Quillrath, Centauran, Vexian, and dozens of other species. Captain Silvex found him there, standing before the human memorial. Commander Brennan, or should I say Admiral Brennan now? Brennan turned with a slight smile. The promotion is still settling in. I am more comfortable commanding a ship than a fleet. You will adjust. You are good at adapting to impossible situations. Silvex stood beside him looking at the names. We owe everything to your people. If you had not answered our distress call all those months ago, none of this would have been possible. We owe everything to each other. Brennan corrected gently. You learned our tactics. We learned from your cooperation. Together we achieved something neither could do alone. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment. Around them, the garden was filled with beings from across the galaxy, all coming to remember the fallen, all united in their grief and gratitude. What happens now? Silvex asked. The Draken will rebuild. They will come again. Then we will be ready again. We will keep training. Keep learning. Keep standing together. That is what civilization means, Captain. Not the absence of threats, but the willingness to face them together. You humans have a strange optimism. You face terrible dangers and somehow believe you will prevail. Brennan smiled. Where we come from, Captain, we learned that life itself is dangerous. Every day on Earth, nature tries to kill you in 1,000 different ways. But we survived and thrived because we refused to give up. Because we adapted. Because we stood together. That is not optimism. That is simply the human condition. He turned to face her directly. The galaxy thought death worlds could not produce civilization. Earth proved them wrong. Now the galaxy thinks the Draken cannot be permanently defeated. Together we will prove them wrong again. Above them, ships from 12 species patrolled in coordinated formations, human vessels flying alongside Quillrath traders and Centauran warships. A new age had begun, born in fire and sacrifice, built on the foundation of beings from different worlds choosing to stand together. The Draken would come again. Other threats would emerge. The galaxy was vast and dangerous, full of challenges that no single species could face alone. But they were not alone anymore. The humans had answered an SOS signal meant for anyone but them. In doing so, they had shown the galaxy that the most powerful weapon was not technology or tactics or overwhelming force. It was the simple determination to protect those who could not protect themselves. To stand firm when standing was hardest. To offer hand and friendship even to those who were different. That was the legacy of the Deathworlders. Not conquest or domination, but guardianship and alliance. And the galaxy would never be the same. In the command center on Earth, deep in the United Human Government headquarters, officials reviewed the reports from Council space. Humanity's first major venture into galactic politics had been baptized in blood and fire. But it had also opened doors to possibilities no one had imagined. The Secretary General signed the orders establishing permanent human military presence in Council space, allocating resources for expanded training programs, and authorizing diplomatic missions to every member world. We went looking for neighbors, she said to her advisors. We found family worth dying for. Whatever comes next, we face it together. On the frontier of Draken space, Supreme Commander Thrax stood in the ruins of Karzath, watching reconstruction crews begin the long process of rebuilding. It would take years, perhaps decades, to restore what the humans had destroyed in minutes, but he was not discouraged. He had learned valuable lessons. The humans were not invincible. They could be hurt. They could lose ships and personnel. And most importantly, they cared about protecting others. That care was both their greatest strength and their greatest weakness. The war is not over, he told Tactical Officer Venn. It is merely paused. We will rebuild. We will learn from our mistakes. And we will return stronger than before. And if the humans stand with the Council again, Thrax smiled coldly, then we will use their own principles against them. We will threaten civilians and force them to divide their forces. We will strike at their supply lines as they struck at ours. We will become what they fear most, an enemy who learns as fast as they do. The Cold War between the Draken sovereignty and the Galactic Council had begun, both sides preparing, both sides training, both sides knowing that the next conflict would be even more terrible than the last. But for now there was peace. Hard-won, fragile, temporary perhaps, but real. In the training facility on Station Kepler 7, Master Sergeant Ortiz addressed a new class of recruits. More species this time. As word spread of the integrated unit's success, they looked at her with hope and determination, ready to learn, ready to stand together. Welcome to the first day of the rest of your lives, Ortiz began. You are here because your worlds chose to stand against tyranny. You are here because you believe that cooperation is stronger than conquest. You are here because someone somewhere answered an SOS signal when they had no obligation to do so. She paused, looking across the assembled faces. That is the legacy you inherit. Not the legacy of humanity alone, but the legacy of every being who chooses to stand for others. Learn it well. Carry it forward. And when the next threat comes, remember that you are not alone. You never were. You never will be. The recruits stood at attention, a symphony of different species united by common purpose. They were the future, the proof that different worlds could build something greater together than any could achieve alone. And somewhere in the vast darkness of space, other distress signals waited. Other civilizations faced dangers they could not overcome alone. Other opportunities for strangers to become allies, for the weak to find protection, for the isolated to discover community. The galaxy was changing. The age of isolated civilizations was ending. The age of cooperation, painful and difficult and beautiful in its imperfection, was beginning. All because Deathworlders from an impossible world heard a cry for help and decided that where you came from mattered less than what you chose to do. The message echoed across the stars. In words and actions, no one gets left behind. Stand together. Face the darkness as one, and the darkness, vast as it was, learned to fear the light of unified civilization standing guard.